Hello, BookTube. I have some mail for you today on an absolutely gorgeous Tuesday. Just warm and sunny and bright blue skies, not a hint of much needed rain. Massachusetts is in a drought and has been for the last 100 years, but it doesn't matter on a day like today. Just beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. Not the kind of sunny day that I dread where there is chill lurking in any shadow. There is no chill today at all. And I've got mail for you, including a periodical. We have the latest issue of Harper's, in which William Deresiewicz writes about the cover story about the gigantic toll that the pandemic has taken on the art world, all different aspects of the art world. And there's also an article in here on the death of children, and there's an article in here on radical climate change and how it's dooming us all. And yet, none of those were the most depressing thing in this issue. The most depressing thing in this issue was a piece by Barrett Swanson called The Anxiety of Influencers, about, let me get you a picture here, about TikTok mansions, TikTok co-ops cropping up. I'm sure you recognize that. If you've ever seen TikTok, I'm sure you recognize that cute boys hand-swinging, fake walking, promenade walking, dance move that happens. It's all just designed to be cute. It's designed to simulate little boys. And it turns out that in California there are TikTok mansions that are either co-ops or that are fully funded by TikTok investors who bring in these kids, these young girls and young men, and they are told, there are house rules. They are told you must make on-brand content for a few hours every day. You have to make your on-brand content before you have your guests over, if any guests. They get their living expenses, and it is just hoped by them and by the money backers behind them that something they make will go viral. That's all they do all day, is just make TikTok videos with the hopes that one of them will go viral. And it was the most depressing article I've read in a periodical so far in 2021. It was worse than reading about endangered species in Bolivia or giant charismatic megafauna being hunted to extinction elsewhere in the world, because that's the past and this is the future. And these young people are off the charts stupid. They have never had any schooling in anything. They don't know anything about anything. And they are the first generation that is not just contemplating, but living in the reality of a world in which there is no such thing as privacy. Not that there's privacy, but you don't have enough of it, but that they don't even understand what it is. They have no concept whatsoever. They are unbelievably, tectonically self-absorbed. In fact, it's their whole livelihood to be self-absorbed. When I was reading the article, it was very, very good. Barrett Swanson does a really good job writing about a totally nihilistic subject. So that I was enjoying reading the article, but I was still thinking, okay, it's not climate change, it's not California wildfires, it's not biodiversity depletion that is going to end the human species. It's these creatures that only look human, but that aren't human in any way anymore. The kids in these TikTok mansions are not human in any way anymore. And I'm not saying that they've devolved, because of course evolution is not a ladder, but they have changed. They are not the species, the same species that you and I are anymore, except maybe they have some of the same biological needs, although it seems to me that these houses run on tobacco and Red Bull and whatnot. These just I read the article this morning. I'm still reeling from it. This is the future. These creatures are going to have an enormous amount of influence. There's not a one of them. There's not a one of these 21-year-olds in that article that isn't going to be a multimillionaire by the time they're 26. And what are they? What does society do with them? They have no skills whatsoever. They don't even understand that such things as skills exist. The world is for them. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but you can also see here the mail sorter wrote a big A for the category here on the magazine. Good thing the cover is ugly, because that's overstepping the line there, bub. But anyway, that was the periodical. There was books coverage, but the books coverage wasn't very good this time around. Claire Massoud is still doing their new books spread, sort of a feature where she gets to pick just a handful of new books. But aside from her thoughts on the new James Ellroy, Widespread Panic, this is the first critical response to that book that I've seen so far. Aside from that and those responses, she seemed clearly baffled by the novel. But aside from that, that piece of her piece, the actual literary essays this time around weren't anything that interested me. And not that I would have been able to enjoy them after Tik Tok Mansion. I wouldn't have been able to enjoy them after that. But then we have Periodical. So we'll see if we can claw our way out of Tik Tok Mansion. These kids, the kids that are in that article, have no idea what a book is. None whatsoever. And this is the old joke. The old online joke used to be that if you hand a zillennial a book, a printed book, they'll look for an on switch. They won't have any idea how it turns on. That was always meant as a kind of exaggeration, just like the online memes about Generation Z not being able to read an analog clock or anything like that. But the kids in Tik Tok Mansion are that meme. They are that meme for real. They actually don't know anything. They have no idea what a book is at all. No idea that the past ever happened. Sorry, this is giving me such an enormous fight, the biggest fight of the week so far. And as I've mentioned many times before, that never bodes well. The book that makes you fight is always the one that isn't worth it. So why did you make me fight? I don't recognize your publisher, Greenleaf Book Group. This is the reason that the book made me fight, because it comes with a full press kit. A folder with all kinds of documentation, a note from the publicist, all sorts of stuff. I haven't seen anything like this in over a year. How much do you want to make a bet that with all of this information here, there isn't going to be anything in here that's actually useful? Like, for instance, this note from the publicist is not useful. It doesn't tell me anything about the book. Oh, all right, it does. It tells me that it comes out on June the 1st. So this is The Essence of Nathan Biddle by J. Williams Lewis. That is our author. Some people can take an author photo. It was a former lawyer and lives in Shoal Creek, a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, so The Essence of Nathan Biddle. A beautifully written, profoundly moving tale told in the literary style of Bildungsroman. It's a timeless Southern Gothic-esque novel that unfolds in the Alabama coast of the 1950s. Protagonist Kit Biddle, nearing the end of his high school career, finds himself tangled in a web of spiritual quandaries and intellectual absurdities. Kit's angst is only compounded by the psychological burden of an unspeakable tragedy that haunts his family. But when he makes an irrational decision that causes a horrific accident, Kit is forced to examine his perceptions of his life and his version of reality. When the enigmatic Anna dismisses Kit, he quickly spirals into despair and self-destruction. Even Kit's witty best friend, Eddie Lichtman, fails to appreciate the magnitude of his emotional struggle. But when Kit's irrational decision to steal a maintenance truck and speed aimlessly down the highway ends in a horrific accident and months of both physical and emotional convalescence, he is forced to examine his perceptions of his life and his version of reality. Okay. All right. Well, that sounds interesting. The lucky thing it's happening in the 1950s. In 2020, you don't have to re-examine your version of reality. Everybody gets their own reality. But this thing comes with a number of blurbs, and I can't help but notice that one of the blurbs is something called Midwest Book Review. I've noticed their name on other things, and I really want to write for them. I seem to remember going to their website and having it be completely unhelpful as to how I go about writing for them. But I'd like to. I'll have to use that as a little reminder to go and find them again and see if their shop is open. Let's see what this next one is. Now that we're done. This one was easy. Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. All right. This is by Nadia Wassef. This is called Shelf Life, Chronicles of a Cairo Bookseller. Very good. This comes out in October, early October. And it is a memoir of how the author founded Egypt's preeminent bookstore, Diwan, and grew it from a single location to a chain of 10. This book offers lessons for entrepreneurs on how to build a strong brand, a street-level glimpse of bustling Cairo, and a striking reflection on the role bookstores play in their communities. The author wrote Shelf Life at her home in London, where she moved in the aftermath of the 2011 revolution. From this distance, she recounts the anemic literary culture of turn-of-the-century Cairo. Tell me about it, you Cairenes. Tell me about it. Is it true? The last time that I had anything to do, knew anything at all, participated in any way in the bookish culture of Cairo was 50 years ago. And then it was wonderful. Lots of very smart old men and women that sort of ran the shops and bazaars and the tables. Wasn't much in the way of reading for an English reader. All of the books that I read at the time were in French. And I'm wondering what the state of things is now. If any of you are in Cairo, I would love to hear from you. She and her co-founders envisioned a store as a transformative space, Egypt's first modern bookstore, where women could find books that spoke to their experiences, and all readers could find offerings from around the world. Okay, well, needless to say, I am all for this. I'm all on top of this. It's going to bring back a lot of memories, I'm sure. But that's fantastic. All right, a bookish book. Then we have this next one is very light, suspiciously light. Could it be a pamphlet of some kind? Something very small. What have we got here? Oh my, more folderol. Oh, it's a slim volume of poetry. Good Lord, we haven't had one of those in a while. This comes out in mid-July. It will be 92 pages. And it is Perishable World, poems by Alicia Hokanson. Very pretty thing. A native of Seattle, the author grew up exploring the beaches, forests, and islands of Puget Sound, inspiring her deep attention to the natural world. Okay, so do we have... Okay, you've got blurbs here. Do you have anything to tell me about the book? Okay, in this book, the author invokes a consciousness rhymed with grief and radiance, feeding us with the luminous specifics of, quote, this world and only this, as she stalks a holy peace, even in the midst of upheaval and death, a perishing world poised on the balance point of environmental disaster, tipping past remediation. No pony ride for the poet, this, but Perishable World slays us with a loving but unflinching exactitude that wields its axe at our frozen hearts with a clout of benediction and ravishment. This does not sound like a pub sheet. This actually sounds... That was just enough blather to make me think that it was written by a poet. Okay, it was written by a poet. That is not the pub sheet. That was written by someone named Lisa Gutt, the Robert H. Winter Memorial Award poet, author of Leprosarium. Duly warned. This whole sheet is just long, thoughtful, paragraph-length blurbs from other poets. And so is the back of the book. Wow. Okay. Well, okay, fantastic. So this is the intimacy of love merges with the intimacy of living closely with the landscape of the Pacific Northwest. The deep green of the temperate rainforest, the islands and the mountains, the flowers and bushes whose names become poetry. Any of you who know the landscape of the Pacific Northwest will know it's a huge canvas on which for a poet to draw. Fantastic. So what did we have a date? Did we give me a date already here? Oh, mid-July. So slim volume poetry from mid-July. Maybe we'll read through it in July. And then we have a box. And then we'll be done with the mail for today. I have to check and see with this video. I ordinarily don't linger over my videos, but I have to see... I have the impression, just as an observer here, that the street noises are oppressively loud today, and that maybe that makes for a bad video. I'll have to wait and see what the case is here. This box is awful small. I can't help but notice. Oh, no wonder it's awful small, because it's just 2 mass-market paperbacks. Oh my! Right, this is a first. This is a first for me. This is the first of many, but nevertheless, that is interesting. This is the first order that I have ever done from Harlequin Books, from the Harlequin website. Uh, I mentioned I did a Zoom chat with Sarah from the Bookish Knitter, all about all things romance. And Sarah and Bree and I actually recorded an episode of their podcast, Categorically Romance, that is going to be airing sometime. I don't understand this concept of sitting on content. I really don't. I don't see why things can't happen right away. But I guess podcasts happen in a very professional manner. But during the course of we had a rock'em sock'em conversation about romance. Once it's out on their podcast, you're gonna love it. You're absolutely gonna love it. And as is the way with things like this, I had to clear off that spot because the bean is clearly thinking about hopping down. There we go. As is the way with things like that, it's only once you do it that you realize whether or not you have chemistry. And I think the three of us just had a ball doing it. And during the course of recording that podcast, we came up with the idea of maybe reading Harlequin romances as a regular thing, maybe with recorded Zoom meetings to talk about them. The Harlequin category romances, so not the big, lush, standalone release romances like you will know from the Bridgerton books, for instance, but rather the category romances for Harlequin romance, very similar to Mills and Boon. We decided that during the course of that podcast, which will air sometime in 2024 or whenever, that we would read some Harlequin category romances, and I think we're going to try and do it together. And that was all the excuse I needed to go to the Harlequin website, look at the June releases, which are available now, and pick a couple. And I did. I picked Harlequin Presents and a Harlequin Desire. And Harlequin has a whole bunch of different categories. They have Love Inspired, that is sort of religion, Christianity based. They have The Desire, which is a little bit racier. They have Harlequin Presents, that is a little bit more wholesome. They have, I believe, a supernatural run. They, of course, have Historical. Harlequin Historical puts out 4 titles a month, and you would expect that those would be the ones that I would get. But believe it or not, in the month of June, the Harlequin Historicals on offer did not appeal. Not one of them, not one of the 4. So I didn't do that. Instead, I went with the modern day. I got Harlequin Presents Pregnant in the King's Palace by Kelly Hunter. I admit, I really like the cover, but I love the contrast between, the unfeeling stone and wrought iron and bright colored passion right in the middle there. But I also really like the title, oddly enough. Pregnant in the King's Palace is a great title for a book. Not just a Harlequin romance, but any book. That is a great title for a book. So what do we have here? Rumors abound that our beloved King Valentine is abdicating. His reasons are unknown, although speculation is that he cannot provide our kingdom with an heir. The eyes of the world are on him, yet our rebellious royal has eyes only for the enchanting Angelique, horse trainer to the elite. Not to be confused, some of you who are very old will remember a series of novels about a character named Angelique. This is not that Angelique. I guarantee you. She was too much for Harlequin, so this is not that. Their attraction is as potent now as it was 10 years ago when they first met. We thought Valentine's abdication was his biggest scandal, but given their fiery reunion, could passionate, headstrong Angelique be carrying an even more shocking secret? And of course, the title sort of gives it away, but one way or another, I love the sound of it. Absolutely love it. So I'm going to try do you want to come up here, Bean? Come here. There you go. Oh no, are you going to make your bed? Why don't you go up on the couch, Frida? Go up on the couch. There you go. There you go. They want to see you anyway, They want to see you anyway. And then this next one is also flagrantly contemporary. Imagine me reading contemporary romances. What has become of me? This is by Kat Shield, and it's called Seduction, Southern Style. You can just picture. That also is a fairly attractive cover. Not nearly as good, I think, as well composed as this one. But still, what have we got here? Art consultant Sienna Burns comes to Charleston to support her adopted sister as she met her birth family, not help to take over the shipping company of her sister. Sienna's further flustered that the CEO, Ethan Watts, is the most irresistible man she's ever met. Cozying up to him for the intel should be easy, but as she falls deeper for Ethan, Sienna must decide where her true loyalties lie. And this is called a sweet tea and scandal novel. I'll have to ask Sarah and Bree if they know any other sweet tea and scandal novels. But this was the very first time that I have ever gone on the Harlequin site and ordered a couple of books. They're very cheap. They're as cheap as mass market paperbacks used to be just across the board. And very enticing, especially the idea of doing read-alongs with those two. Because we hit it off. We had a blast. So now that I got these, now that I have these, I'm going to have to fire off an email and find out what's going on. Find out what kind of mischief we're going to get into with categorical romance read-alongs. That would be so much fun if that were... It was a little bit of a dicey experience. I went onto the Harlequin website. I did everything correctly. I filled out everything correctly. Got all the way to the end. Finished my checkout. Hit buy. And a big, banner came up saying, unable to process this request. Please check back later. And Sarah doesn't work for Harlequin Romance. I don't know why. They are missing a real good bet not to take her on. She is the ultimate super fan. But even though I know she doesn't work for them, I still complain to her right away. What's going on? But it turns out everything went fine. I'll find out if that's a regular glitch next month. Because you can bet that I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to pick 2 more books for Harlequin July as soon as they're posted. Who knows what kind of category they'll be. Love-inspired don't tend to do it for me. And the paranormal stuff doesn't tend to do it for me because the love-inspired tends to be a little bit neutered. I want my romances to be above room temperature. Thank you very much. They don't have to be sizzling hot, but I don't want them to just be sitting there. I mean, this isn't Leeds. And also the paranormal ones tend to bother me because the world building tends to be bad. If you introduce something that is not everyday reality, then you are creating a magic system, whether it's science fiction or magic or whatever. You're creating something, and you can't just import it in by whole blocks. This isn't IKEA. And too often, authors who write those kinds of books do try to do that. They just want to get on with the romance. So I'll just import all these big blocks in. I'll move this block in about, contemporary urban vampires or whatever. I won't bother to work out how it works. And I don't like that. And that tends to happen too often, so I tend to avoid them. But these two, they are going to be extremely nice, as Jason Harrigan would put it, amuse-bouche. So anyway, those are the books. We have, let's see here, The Essence of Nathan Biddle. A young man causes a catastrophe and then has to re-examine his life. Then we have, let's see here, Perishable World by Alicia Hokanson. Very pretty 90-page volume of contemporary poetry. We have Shelf Life, Chronicles of a Cairo Bookseller, about the very first modern bookseller in Cairo. Fascinating. And then we have 2 Harlequin romances. We have Seduction, Southern Style. No idea how it varies from Northern Style. And Pregnant in the King's Palace. Gotta love that title. So there's the mail. I don't know if more is coming. But if it does, you'll be the first to know. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.